welcome to episode 736 of Longbox Heroes, the Lamborghini of comic book podcasts. I'm Todd, along with Joe. How are we doing today, Joe?
I have a list of no less than 10, maybe 15 temporary show titles.
Right.
The only one that's an actual thing for you is ladling my warmth, but I think we actually ended up using that, or that's one of your catchphrases.
Yep.
To give you an idea where a lot of those temporary show titles came from was back when Fresher and Parlance was a show on the network.
Right.
If you remember Fresher and Parlance and your podcast listening habits.
I do. They're still all in my queue, but go ahead.
All right. So I'm deleting those temporary show titles. They're gone forever as of this conversation. We're never going to use them.
Okay.
Pete, if you're listening, I'm sorry. Jeremy, if you're listening, return my emails. I almost swore.
Oh, my goodness. I will say I think they were all in the email this week, so.
Oh, okay.
But I'll have to go over and look at them and wish them a fond farewell, you know?
Yes. Bid them adieu.
Adieu. I'll bid them 2 adieus.
There you go.
Would you like to know what's on the show this week, Joe?
I would.
In news, updates on late books and new addition to the DC Compact Comics, and a giant box store buys some comic IPs, conventions, the latest edition of Becky's My Walk Down Lois Lane, and it's round 2 of Lois against Catwoman.
2?
What we read last week, which was JSA #1, Absolute Superman #1, and Saga 70. What we're looking forward to this week, Todd and Joe have issues where we reread Gail Simone's Secret Six in its entirety, and this week it's issue 28. A contest for a product Joe and I are both big fans of. I'm curious about that. And finally, the big Dukaroo in TV and movie talk, spoiler-filled talk, the grand finale of The Penguin. And we're going to save that for the end. We're not going to do it here, right? Because I'd like to do it here, but I know the flow of the show and we can't. So
right. If we got to make Todd wait, we got to make the listeners wait as well, right?
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into the show proper here. So DC, of course, back on their business, having a bunch of stuff that's late.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly it's that Batman Echoes book that's the kind of takes place in the world of the Batman 89 book.
Mm-hmm.
Batman 89 movie, that is a perennially late book. Not to be outdone by the Jason Aaron, Doug Mahnke Batman Offworld book, which is about to tip the scales at 4 months late for the finale of that one, which is a bummer. No better way to kill the momentum of a book than that.
Right.
Nice House by the Sea, of course. The next issue is going to be about a month or so late, which is, I think a given with these kind of, sort of, what have you, new Vertigo books. They're going to run on their own schedule. They're going to come out when they come out,
Right.
And I think we don't have any further updates on the style guide.
No, and I didn't even ask today when I saw somebody, so.
I just hate when we get delays on books that I've been enjoying. Which is the Jason Aaron book,
Yeah, but I feel like, did you think they had to put the effort into Superman, maybe?
Yeah, I think, because I definitely ate crow on this one when I said that the Absolute line was going to be an idea and a tease and a thing that maybe we might get something of by the end of 2024. Mm-hmm. And here we are that there's 3 books already out with their #1s. The #2s start rolling out now. And I think once the timetable got moved up on that, some of the other stuff might have gotten moved to the back burner, which is completely understandable.
Yeah, but it would have been nice to finish up that Batman Offworld altogether because I was having fun with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I said, when Marvel has a bunch of late books, we talk about them. When DC has a bunch of late books, we talk about them. That's what we let you know. It's tough to, I say it all the time. I want to do better with the final order cutoff dates for stuff, but it's one of those things where the final order cutoff dates for stuff are Mondays, and they usually don't roll those out until like Friday as a reminder for that Monday. So we always miss it because we record this show on a Tuesday to come out on a Wednesday.
Right.
But like I said, depending on how my limits of free time go, I'm going to definitely do a better job, hopefully, with that. But obviously, one silver lining, if you will, one thing that's good not to see on the DC late books list is the Jeff Johns Justice Society book.
Right.
Because it's done. It finally came out.
Yeah. I'm still looking for Doomsday Clock, but that's just me.
I could pull up the spreadsheet and I can go over all that. I think we've done that once before.
Nah, I think we're good.
Okay. Well, one of the positive things that DC has going on right now is that Compact Comics line. It even got a plug on AEW TV like a month or so ago, and it got like a commercial on AEW TV, which means it was probably on other TBS, TNT, Warner programming. But they are continuing to expand the line. It looks like they're adding it approximately like 8 to 10 books every set that they put stuff out. The latest stuff that's being added is Authority, Wonder Woman Blood and Guts, which I think is a Greg Rucka thing, Death, The High Cost of Living, one of the Harley Quinn early trades from the Jimmy Palmiotti, Amanda Conner run, Batman Long Halloween, Why the Last Man, V for Vendetta, We 13, and DC New Frontier. So it's obviously it's a nice mix of stuff. It's a lot of heavy hitters in that. And, we talk about this all the time. We've talked about this in the past, where DC has so many of these like heavy hitter books. Even if I look at the previous slate, right? Just pulling out of that, again, not a ton of heavy hitters, but I would say that Kingdom Come, the Greg Rucka, J.H. Williams Batwoman that was in Detective Comics, and Superman Birthright. I'd argue that those are heavy hitters. Okay. In this one, I'd say DC New Frontier, Death, The High Cost of Living, Batman Long Halloween, Why the Last Man, V for Vendetta, and We 3 are all heavy hitters.
Yep.
Marvel don't have as many like back catalog heavy hitters as DC does.
Right.
DC is like that perpetual motion, or Marvel is that perpetual motion machine that just keeps moving forward and putting out new stuff, and not really caring so much about the history and their legacy, where DC has this rich history and legacy that they focus on like 70% of the time.
Well, I think the fundamental difference is that DC tried some really new and groundbreaking stuff over the years, or let writers go crazy, whether it was creator-owned stuff or stuff within the continuity, where Marvel has been like, our bread and butter has been good superhero stories, and we're not going to stray for that, if that makes any sense. So it's like, oh, here, go do We 3, Death, The High Cost of Living, like all this weird stuff that's like acclaimed. So when they do have a good product from Marvel, it's a little different, because I'm not going to say it's harder to do acclaimed stuff with superheroes, but when you're pumping out a book and you need to have it pumped out every month, Marvel's just like this machine occasionally runs on time, and this is our thing. This is what we're doing. They're not going to have those books that you're like, oh my God, they're like the award-winning blah 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 kind of books that like DC tried over the years, if that makes any sense. Experimentation from DC. Yeah, Marvel don't experiment.
So I think Marvel doesn't experiment as much, or they don't experiment as long as. Like, you could argue and say that Kingdom Come was an experiment, right? And in more recent years, Marvel has done more experimental stuff with a Kingdom Come-esque story, which you could argue and say is like the Old Man Logan stuff, which is Old Man, a bunch of other things, right?
Right.
But what's more critically acclaimed, and now granted, it may just because it's an older book, it's been around for 28 years versus Old Man Logan that's maybe only been around for like 10 to 15 years, but I think more people would probably hold in higher regard Kingdom Come than they do the Old Man whatever books.
Right.
And, as you mentioned, that Marvel is more of a superhero factory. I think they do have stuff on their roster in their library that they should be pushing more, like DC does their stuff. And it always puzzles me that they don't. Like, and listen, I'm an apologist for this sort of stuff, but like, I'm a Spider-Man fan, dyed in the wool till the day I'm done here on this mortal coil. The fact that Marvel doesn't push Kraven the Last Hunt as hard as DC pushes, let's just say, The Authority.
Right. That'll change after December, though. But go ahead.
Okay, right. Right, exactly. When the Kraven movie hits and Kraven Mania runs wild, brother, and all the people that have the web shaved into their heads are shaving lion's paws, I guess. Lion teeth. I don't trailer's a little confusing, but you get where I'm saying. Like, there is stuff on the Marvel catalog. I'll argue and even say the Mark Waid, and I'm kicking myself that I can't remember the artist right now. They did the Man Without a Country story, which again, they've done a lot of Man Without a Country stuff at Marvel with Captain America. But the one that Mark Waid did right before the Heroes Reborn stuff when the Rob took it over. I feel that Captain America story is one of the strongest Captain America stories.
Yep.
And that's one that Marvel should be pushing as much as DC pushes, I don't know, Deceased. Right? Where like DC is like, look at this great thing that we did. We turned our guys into zombies. And they treat it like it's the end all be all of superhero zombie things, where it came out well after the zombie craze was a thing.
Yep.
But it's just that DC, I think, treats and respects their back catalog way better than Marvel does.
Yes, but also I think, and I don't like to use the word acclaimed, I think DC has more acclaimed like stuff where, like, if I went down the list and I was like, okay, there's the classic stuff. Everybody, knows X-Men Days of Future Past and, the Dark Phoenix saga and, maybe John Byrne's Fantastic Four.
Daredevil, the Frank Miller Daredevil Born Again.
That's one. Frank Miller's Daredevil is their acclaim book. That should be pushed. Something that was award nominated is all those, was it Fraction and Aja Hawkeye runs? Yes. That's a book that they should, like, those were award nominated or award winning comics that Marvel does not push because Marvel seems more of a now guy. Marvel,
right, like now. I said before, yeah.
Yeah, so that, I'm totally with you. I came around to your way of thinking as I was talking about it.
And I think with the Daredevil TV show that picking up here, that it's not going to be on Netflix, it's going to be on Disney Plus. It's entitled Born Again. I know they said that it's not like an adaptation direct of that storyline, but I could certainly see maybe come the December, January solicitations, we see more of a push toward that.
Oh, totally. And like I said, I feel the Born Again title is going to be a lot like Secret Invasion was on Disney Plus in name only.
In name only, exactly. But I'm here for it. Anything that gets people reading, at least discovering some of that classic Marvel stuff that Marvel themselves doesn't even look at,
I'm with you. Because today Brett came in. I ran into Brett at the comic shop, and he was like, "Oh, look what I bought last time." Me and Joe, whatever you went to, and it was the DC Comics AEW shirt.
Yes,
that he bought. And Joe, I have a lot of fun on this show and other shows about banging on wrestling, but if that AEW and those ring aprons or whatever they were doing and those shirts, they get people to walk into comic shops or buy them digitally or online, I'm all for it. I'm with you. Whatever gets comics out there to the masses so I can love my hobby for the rest of my life.
Right. And, the smaller companies have tried it, on a much smaller scale, of course, because there is a Venn diagram that crosses of comic book people and wrestling people. And the fact that, Warner's owns a wrestling company, or they do the TV. They don't own it. They do the TV for it. And they own a comic book company. They're doing crossover stuff. And, whatever the investment is on that and whatever the rollover rate is and, however many shirts they sold or whatever it is, I'm excited when the things that I like cross over.
Right.
It's cool.
And we were discussing how long will it be until AEW guys are not in the like little promo comics in the back, but are actually in comics. Like Brett and DJ said today, that upcoming Tom King Black Canary Fight Club book.
Yeah.
They should, like, Britt Baker should be one of the people she fights.
And I know that they just thrown Britt Baker, or that's a name that you recognize or whatever it is. And I'll reserve my remarks on why Britt Baker would be in that book, but I get you.
I said that name because she's one of them that was in the backup comics.
So the reason I would assume to put a living, breathing person who is a wrestling television character into a DC book, mainline or otherwise, right?
Right.
I think you now run into more likeness rights. You run into what that person's contract is. That, let's say, and again, you're saying Britt Baker, and let's just throw Britt Baker out there for example, right? Let's say they decide to do a team up book with, and again, it's different with Britt Baker versus like somebody whose name is not their name, right? Like, spoilers, everybody. Orange Cassidy's name isn't Orange Cassidy, right?
Right.
But like Britt Baker's name is Britt Baker. That's her legitimate name.
Right.
So they put her into a comic book as a character interacting with other DC Universe people. And then let's say Britt Baker doesn't renew her contract. Or there's verbiage in her contract that like says that Warner has the rights and exclusivity to her name and her likeness for X amount of years. Now it gets into like these murky areas because like, where does the difference between the TV character and the actual human being begin? Like when all those years ago when DC did the Looney Tunes crossovers, those are cartoon characters crossing over with comic book characters. They own those, they own these. But like Britt Baker owns her name. She owns her likeness. She is her.
Right. And to be fair, I don't know if it was them. I may have brought up Britt Baker because I saw the pamphlet right there in front of me.
Right.
But because we might even have said OC in a comic. You know what I mean?
But that's the thing. And let's say it's OC. OC, now we need to figure out like OC created and like OC could prove that he was doing the character with that name back to 2006. He could go ahead and verify that he was doing it with this look that he has it on TV back to 2011. And, did he file the trademarks and likeness rights to those sort of things? And now you have to renegotiate a contract to see that it can be used in print as a fictional character in this fashion. And if it can, does he have any say over it? And like, it gets into all these other things.
I'm with you. And then you have to prove whether or not the character evolved over those 10 years. It's a whole
come
thing.
on now.
No, I get you. We got into the minutia of it, but you get what I was going for. So,
I love it, but I can't see it happening.
Gotcha.
One thing where I definitely know it won't be happening is the big Atlas Comics 50th anniversary that's coming up here.
Right.
So I'll plead ignorance and say I am unfamiliar with a lot of the Atlas Comics characters.
Oh, Joe, all the stars are here. All the stars. The Brute. You know the Brute. Blazing Battle Tales featuring Sergeant Hawk. The Destructor. Let me see. Iron Jaw. All the stars are here. Morlock 2001 and the Midnight Men. Police Action featuring Lomax and Luke Malone. Savage Combat Tales with Sergeant Stryker's Death Squad, Joe. All the stars are here. But go ahead.
But I will say the fact that the people who own the rights and the trademark to these characters are not only in bed with Paramount Pictures to make movies, not only in line with Mego to make action figures, not only in bed with Mad Engine to do like clothing, but they're also in bed with Walmart to get all of these things in Walmart stores.
Right.
That's a pretty big deal, right?
I think it is, but I'm making fun of them because I did the all the stars are here bit. But just to say, I think this might be Walmart stretching and all this stuff. Like everybody, we need a comic book IP, and just to say we're scraping the bottom of the barrel a little bit because it's the 50th anniversary of Atlas Comics. Joe, do you know how long Atlas Comics lasted?
I would say a year.
June 74 it started, and then sometime in 75 it was defunct. Do you want to guess? I mentioned a bunch of different titles. How many comics they published in that time?
Let me look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My gazintas. Let's say 30 comics.
Double that and add one. They did 61 comics in that
time.
No comic in that time lasted longer than 4 issues. They did a couple of the oversized magazines, like remember the Marvel magazines they did in the 70s and stuff like that? Yes. The editor of Atlas Comics was Steve Lieber, Stan Lee's brother. They did it. They were all trying to do it. It was the guy who did the company, was the guy who owned Marvel beforehand. And he sold it. And everybody thinks that he ended up starting this company as revenge against Marvel, trying to knock them out of the comics, like making money kind of a deal, because they fired a family member who was working. He said, like, if I sell it to you, you have to keep my son on. Now, there's no like definitive proof of all this, but it's kind of been what people have talked about. And then it was just so poorly run that it went under. And all of these, I could just say what their just the like serial numbers filed off of. Like I said, it was Blazing Tales featuring Sergeant Hawk. That was just Sergeant, Fury and his Howling Commandos. Iron Jaw was kind of like a Conan knockoff. Target, literally retitled as John Target Manstalker, was the Human Target. They just did all these comics. They weren't very good, but they had some great creators on them. Mm-hmm. And I just laughed because I'm like, this is what you're banking on. You're going to make all this, like the thing that couldn't work for more than 4 issues, that track record. You're going to make toys, and I don't know. I think the comic boom has gotten into people's heads and they're reaching further than their arms can go. You know what I mean?
So, let me ask you this.
Okay.
As a knowledgeable comic book person,
right?
And again, we'll get into analytics and discussion and everything else like that. What do you think has more legs as a property going into 2025? Atlas Comics or Valiant Comics?
Okay. Do you just mean what I think would be a better product, or what has more chance, is what you're saying?
What do you think has a more nebulous chance?
I would say just because Walmart's back in Atlas right now and they have a plan, I would say Atlas. But if somebody had a plan for Valiant, I would say the Valiant characters, because at least they have stories to pick from that ran years, and those characters worked for a while. Mm-hmm. Where the stuff you're using, nobody ever liked. So what are you going to do with it? Like, you have nothing. I guess you could do fresh ideas and hire great writers, but I'll back Valiant every day of the week over Atlas if somebody did the push on them.
So you summed up my thoughts on all this exactly. A plan. Mm-hmm. Valiant had an announcement, and we're coming up now on 5 years, and we've seen nothing from it. Mm-hmm. We've actually seen less Valiant output in the last 5 years since they made that announcement and the Bloodshot movie, right?
Yep.
And does Atlas have these partnerships with Mad Engine, with Mego, with Paramount, with Walmart? They have partnerships. Do they have a plan?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I'm with you.
Now, they have the partnerships in place that if they have a plan, they could put stuff where it needs to go.
Yep, they have the outlet.
They have the outlet for it. And, there's markets with the correct marketing. you can make anything seem like a can't-miss property long enough to make a profit. Now, again, what long enough is and what a profit is, how much did Mad Engine, Mego, Paramount, Walmart invest in, as you stated, a comic book company that lasted barely a year and put out 61 books?
Right.
I'm going to guess they probably did on pennies on the dollar.
Right.
They probably got the rights to this for a song.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can line this up and formulate a plan and get these things put out in front of people's eyes, and they have a month of good sales, 2 months of good sales, I'm sure, I would like to think that they have some sort of idea. Now, yes, granted, you and I, being a little bit more knowledgeable about this sort of stuff, see that the overall look of superhero stuff is kind of on a little bit of a downturn as of the last year or two for movies and TV and that sort of thing. But just as quickly as it went down, it could quickly come back up.
The one thing I will say is, though, it doesn't seem like Atlas has any superheroes. It has all different genre characters. Like, it has a Dracula's, and it has a combat, and it has one Western character. You know what I mean?
And a military guy, and
right.
I get what you're saying. Sure,
but no superhero stuff. And I'm with you. You can make anything work, and with Walmart having the outlet, that helps because kids are going to be in the store and see that. And I'm wondering if, which might skew the numbers in Walmart and all these people's heads, is when they had those exclusive DC books and they were selling the 100-pagers.
Yeah.
But then things changed when they weren't exclusive with Walmart anymore. It was the retailers got mad and said, how come we can't have these in our comic shops? And then once they were in the comic shops, it was these aren't special anymore. I can get these in any comic book shop. So I'm wondering if they went, these sold like hotcakes while we're here. But it's it was Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman. But Iron Jaw, you're putting your money on Iron Jaw. Okay, I hope you paid, like you said, next to nothing for the rights. So,
and I hope they have a plan, and I hope they have a big marketing blitz. Mm-hmm. I hope.
Right. I'm actually probably going to keep my eye on this because I want to see if this is going to fly, drown, or just, be in the middle for a while and then go away.
Right. It's an interesting idea.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what happens.
Or if it does happen. I'm with you.
Or if it does happen. That's the other thing, of course.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting to see if Atlas or anyone has any presence. I know they had presence at New York Comic Con a month ago. This weekend, we'll see if they have something set up at Grand Rapids Comic Con.
Mm-hmm.
I know Fred Van Lente, where have you been, and Fabian Nicienza, plotter extraordinaire, are going to be there. If you were in the greater Grand Rapids area and you got nothing doing this weekend, you could do a lot worse than attending this convention. We got the link to the show notes, the link to the convention in the show notes that accompany this episode. Along with information about the soon-to-be-named network at soon-to-be-named-network.tumblr.com. Anytime any of the shows go live, of course, you could certainly find them at their own individual websites. You could find them at the podcatcher of your choice. And you could also find them over at soon-to-be-named-network.tumblr.com. And that includes, of course, this show that you're listening to right now, Longbox Heroes After Dark, Puzzle Warriors 3, Profane Arguments, Porch Talk, At Odds with Wrestling, We Need Wrestling, Final Wrestling Place, and just this past week was the last episode of Wings on Wings.
Yeah.
End of an era for the crew. If you're a fan of them, if you've grown accustomed to the crew, DJ Michelle, Brett, Doug, Tatum's son, and 2 times you.
Yes, I was on there. The Carl Blanchard extravaganza episodes.
Yes. Go back through their archives, check those sort of things out. If you were a fan of the television show Wings, you enjoy Brett and DJ's antics over on We Need Wrestling. This was their last episode. It was kind of bittersweet. Everybody was a little choked up, sad. You can hear them crying off mic.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to have emotions. And of course, if anyone from the network is on any other shows and they let me know, I'll be sure to include it over at soon-to-be-named-network.tumblr.com. Now, I recently was on a podcast.
Oh, shocker.
Well, I was on the podcast Through the Years, which covers the Ring of Honor promotion show by show, but they did a career retrospective of the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson.
Okay.
They did a 6-hour career retrospective of Bryan Danielson, and they had a lot of their previous guests, which included myself, to record something and send it in. I'll be completely honest with you, it's a 6-hour podcast. I haven't gotten a chance to dive into it yet, but I'm in there somewhere. If you want to hear me wax poetic about my favorite Bryan Danielson match, and the moment that I knew that he would be a megastar. And because I'm a hipster, it was before everyone else knew.
We don't use that word on the show. I'll say this. I think people would love to listen to you wax poetic about anything. I've come to that conclusion, Joe.
Maybe. But like I said, that's up on the Tumblr, soon-to-be-named-network.tumblr.com. You can check out our friends and the stuff that they're up to in and around the internet as well. Go check out Mike Sterling's blog over at progressiveruin.com. Go check out our friend Kevin's blog over at helliansteam.com. Go check out Rick Williams' The Chop Shop at freekaratechops.storeenvy.com. Go check out Jason Sandberg's Jupiter, still available for sale over at his Indiegogo. Go check out Chris Run's self-published comic Battle Monsters. You could buy it digitally, or I think you can buy it in print through his site, fortressofcomicnews.com. Our good friend Davey of the band Cave People, who was gallivanting all around the East Coast.
Right.
You could go check out his site, cavedomaincomics.com, for his self-published stuff. I know he's been teasing a lot of stuff for the next project that he's working on, and I'm very excited to see whatever that is going to be. Davey is a very creative person, much more creative than I or you. Music, comics. I know he occasionally writes stuff for like video game journals and stuff like that.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. And of course, if you do not have a comic book store in your area, or you do not have a good comic book store in your area, let our store be your store. Comics on the Green. I have the Facebook page linked up. Dave and the crew do a much better job of letting you know when the final order cutoff dates are for the latest and greatest and hottest books that are coming out. And of course, you could sign up for their mail order subscription service. Get your books mailed to you weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. And if you do, there's a chance you can get a sketch on the package from our good friend Becky, who we're going to turn things over to now for my walk down Lois Lane.
Welcome back to my walk down Lois Lane. Last week, Catwoman hypnotized Lois into becoming a double of her so Lois can kill the Penguin, while Selina robs bird fancier Harvey Hawk's museum exhibit and then the Penguin's hideout. Penguin showed up just in time to get his butt kicked and nabbed by Batman and Robin, while Superman tries to unhypnotize Lois. Selina swaps places with Lois on the sly, tricks Superman into kissing her, and then taking her to her mountainside hideout, where she turns him into a cat with Circe's wand, shoves him in a kryptonite cage. Lois steals Catwoman's car, crashes it into the mountainside hideout, and the two begin to fight. That was a lot, but there's more. This is Lois Lane 71 from 1958, so let's dive in. Lois and Selina are having a cat fight. Lois is begging Selina to let Kitty Soups out of the kryptonite cage, and Selina says a better idea is to use Circe's wand to change Lois into a mouse. Lois steps back, feels like she's falling, and everything fades to black. Catwoman picks up Lois, now a mouse, and drops her in a cage with Super Kitty. As she squeaks for her life because she's about to be dinner, she's shaken awake by a police officer. When Lois stepped backward, she bumped into one of Catwoman's grenades and started a cataclysmic vibration that brought down the entire mountainside hideout and knocked her out. This alerted Batman and Robin, who showed up, apprehended Catwoman, and then left everything else for the cops. Poor Soups is still a kitty. Lois lets him out and tries to turn him back with the wand, but it doesn't work. She takes him to visit Selina in jail so she can reverse the spell. Selena says, yeah, sure, I'll help him if he breaks me out of jail when the guards aren't looking. And Super Kitty immediately starts to bend the bars with his little kitty paws, with Lois grabbing him and telling him no. Selena tells them, oh well, he's going to be a cat till he dies. Too bad. Lois takes Super Kitty home and while petting him begs for forgiveness because this is all her fault. Super Kitty hops up onto the typewriter and begins to type, "Don't despair, I'll stay with you till we can switch me back." And honestly, Super Kitty doing things is like my favorite part of this comic. It's been a few weeks now and people are reporting that Superman is missing. He's refusing to let Lois tell anyone he's a cat, so Batman brings her to the White House for questioning because she was the last person to see him alive, and she brings the Super Kitty for protection. At the White House, Super Kitty has to pretend to be a normal house cat and plays with the president's beagles, while Lois is told the moon has a shipment of animals that Superman promised to deliver, and now that they can't find him, those animals are going to die. Lois says she'll tell Superman what's going on, but he made her promise not to tell anyone where he is, and the Super Kitty flies to the moon. The president, his cabinet, and Lois all watch Super Kitty fly the container of animals back to Earth. The next day, Lois says that maybe they should let Lana in on what's happening, and maybe she knows a way to help. The comic cuts to Lana and her father, Professor Lang, looking at ancient Egyptian artifacts. They found a mummified cat paw that grants a single wish to whoever holds it, and Lana dreams of making herself a queen, or a superhero, or a super queen. Just then, Lois shows up with the Super Kitty and explains everything that happened. Lana goes, let's try the kitty paw, and it works immediately. The issue ends with Superman telling Lana he owes her one, Lana telling him she'll take that wedding ring as an OU one, and Lois upset that not only Selena, but now Lana has bested her. Can you see why I love these so much? They're fantastic. There are no better issues than these ones. I hope you guys enjoyed them too, and tune in next week for more.
Thank you very much, Becky. I do appreciate that, of course. A little bit of silliness, no surprise there in these Lois Lane comics. Did she hire you on as a writer with that cataclysmic line that was thrown in there?
I have a feeling, no, I was not brought in to punch up her script, if you mean. But what I do think is that probably came straight from the writing of those comics. Do you know what I mean? Like, I do not doubt that they were in there. If not, maybe I'm rubbing off on her. Who knows?
Maybe. So definitely, again, thank you very much, Becky, for your contribution here to the show. Let's get into what we read from this past week. Todd, where would you like to begin?
I'm going to start with the book I was looking forward to most, which is JSA number 1, written by Jeff Lemire and art by Diego Alorachegu. I'm guessing I destroyed that, but I don't know how to pronounce it. So it starts out, we basically get, a brief history of like what the Justice Society is, how they were kind of founded, a bit like, of them over the years, and how they're more of a family than a team kind of a deal, which I always like about them in the DC universe. And then we get into kind of present day, and Cobra, not the one from G.I. Joe, but the one from DC, is running around doing stuff. And Infinity Inc. kind of a deal is running around stopping them, like Jade, Obsidian, her brother, the young woman Wildcat kind of a deal. And maybe some characters like Obsidian are going too far to find out what they know to stop them. And then we end up getting the team meeting, and we're getting bits of information as the meeting goes on, kind of like that some of the main roster, the JSA, were kidnapped, and kind of who's the kid with Johnny Thunderbolt now? He's in the hospital. It's Jakeem, because when it happened, he got hurt. And then as the characters, we're getting the dynamic of the characters, like who was dating who kind of a deal, and maybe it fell apart. So we don't get it all laid out, but we kind of get a bit of it. And obviously the mainstay is like maybe Obsidian going a little too far with, trying to do the superheroing. And he's like, maybe we should change. Maybe like times have changed. Who needs, the JSA anyway, kind of a deal, the way they are. We get a bit of what's going on with the missing JSAers as they're trying to hold off some, magical army in the Tower of Fate. And finally, we get maybe the group that's all behind this with like a secret reveal I don't kind of want to give away. I really enjoyed this. I think it's a great groundwork issue, like just setting the plate for what we're going to have. Wasn't like completely blown away, but I'm a big JSA fan, and I did like some of the twists and turns that we got. So I'm looking forward to this, but I definitely think this is a good starting point for someone who has read the JSA and someone who hasn't.
Right. I like this. Didn't love it. Mm-hmm. Obviously, because part of what I grew to like in the JSA was like all the interplay, all the interpersonnel relationships, like this person with that person, this person with this person, and how those all kind of weave into each other, right? Mm-hmm. And we get a lot of that here, but it's a lot of the newer legacy characters, your more Infinity Inc. folks, as opposed to the legacy JSA people, where the legacy JSA people are trapped somewhere else.
Right.
Now, did I miss where and when that happened? Because it makes it feel like it happened during the last big crossover, but I don't recall it happening in the main book. That it happened in one of the side books. And it didn't happen at the end of JSA, the Jeff Johns run, if I remember correctly.
Right. It definitely didn't happen at the end of the Jeff Johns run. I feel like, because I didn't read every Absolute Power crossover kind of a thing, I feel like it happened off camera and we have to, it's interweaved with whatever's going on with maybe the villains that we're introduced to, if you get my meaning. I think that's going to be the reveal.
For sure. And again, obviously we don't want to give away the spoiler, but if you know JSA history, then you can kind of piece together the greater big umbrella who, but not the I guess individual breakdown,
right?
Without giving too much away, and maybe I just did. But like I said, it was good. I'm interested to see how all the interpersonal relationships with the characters that we have here work out. But I like my old timers in my JSA books.
I'm the same way. If you don't have Alan and Jay like as the main crew, then we'll see.
Give me two of the three.
Exactly.
And to a lesser extent, Wildcat all the time.
Right. We need more boxing stories.
Yes. So the book I was most looking forward to coming out this past week was Saga number 70. Continuing here, this was late. And again, Image doesn't give you the big announcements, but the next like 2 issues are also going to be late as well. Mm-hmm. And then, they go on hiatus after issue 72. So we're in the middle of a current story arc as things are kind of amping up. And Prince Robot is going to be sent off to Windy Tooth. And I have sit here and I have said to you and anyone that'll listen dozens of times that I don't trust what's going on with Windy Tooth. Mm-hmm. And I'm afraid for what's going to happen, especially with the way that everything is set up. In regards to his departure and what is it? You get the whole thing with Alana is given a gemstone of summoning that if there is an emergency, one or the other can call him back from there. Mm-hmm. But if they do so too early, then there's going to be a great risk that happens. And I just have a bad feeling about all of it.
Right. With the gem, you don't think they're going to pull a Morpheus thing, do you? Where it's like, oh, you summoned me. Well, I was safe while I was, you know what I mean? Kind of a deal. Like anytime that's something summoned, it's usually bad. But I'm going to swing the other way. I think that whole thing is actually good for him, for Prince Robot. And it's going to be Alana summoning Prince Robot and ruining his life because of it. Do you know what I mean? Not the other way around. Like, to be like, oh, it's a good place, and I summoned you at a bad time, if that makes any sense. Kind of like switching it on its head, but we'll have to see.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, we get our B's and our C plots and everything else like that. But obviously, so, we get the bit where the bartender guy is talking to the guy who's in charge of the circus, and boy, howdy, was that circus something else.
Yep.
A lot of the imagery. Remember the days when that first page in the issue of Saga would always be something a little shocking, a little randy, if you will.
Yes.
And now they kind of hide it like pages 3 or 4 into the book as opposed to page 1. I think, and again, it's an interesting choice that they've made in regards to that. But as word is getting out in regards to Alana and Prince Robot and Hazel, it appears as though there's a spy. There's insinuation that the bartender who has the hots for Alana, they have a relationship. Last issue, there was that conversation that he was having on the phone that we got to see what was being said, but he wasn't relaying to Alana what was going on. And they red herring you there, but then they reveal at the end that maybe someone on the ship that they're on has stooged off that Alana and Hazel and Prince Robot are on the ship. So this is how a Saga book goes. We're issue 4 of a 6-issue arc. This is the beginning of things getting worse before they get better.
Right. And then, obviously, Petrichor, who was Prince Robot's lover, kind of a deal, the father, is on the lookout for something. The only thing I have to ask about you is, because I'm kind of confused, were their horns always like that? They look like they've morphed into, like, they're not the same shape, if that makes any sense. You know what I'm talking about?
I do, but I think it's like maybe like a person by person basis.
Okay.
With the horn people versus the wing people.
Right.
Yeah.
I just feel like that's changed. Something's going on there, but we'll see. I enjoyed it. I'm with you. I'm waiting to see when it's going to get when things are going to go really good for people or when they're about to go really bad. So.
Exactly. So the other book that we both read here was Absolute Superman #1, written by Jason Aaron with art by Rafa Sandoval.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel bad. Who was the artist that they had announced last week who did the original designs for this?
I forget, to tell you the truth.
I'm looking it up now. I should have had this in my notes, and I feel bad that I don't. But they did the original designs for the Absolute Superman stuff, and due to flooding where they live, they had to get pulled off the book to meet the deadline and stuff. Mm-hmm. But they still used a lot of their designs in the book and that sort of thing. While I'm looking that up, what did you think of this? What are your thoughts?
I like this. I actually really like a lot, because the whole bit of this character coming to Earth, and there's like, we get the story of this like mining colony that's kind of using like slave labor or abused labor to do stuff, and how it kind of like runs parallel to the backstory that we get about Superman and Krypton, and how Superman's parents, Jor-El and Laura, are different, like how the life choices that they made, like, because we've always had the science, guild and the commoners and stuff, and how their life was like, maybe we kind of rejected that hierarchy and we became this, and what the S represents now, like, it's all completely different. And what destroyed Krypton was maybe the mining thing. I thought this could have been really heavy-handed, but it wasn't. And like, this to me, I think, is the one that's maybe closest to the character, with just tweaks and subtle changes, as opposed to like Wonder Woman and Batman. And the only thing that really surprised me after seeing the first issue of this, after reading Wonder Woman and Batman, is that this one is just blatantly a not one and done story. It's like literally a to be continued. I thought this would be a one and done like all the other ones to get people in, be like, oh, well, you don't have to worry about, reading any other issues. But it was so good. I kind of want to read more. And I don't know, this might almost be my favorite of the 3 Absolute books.
It's tough to say. And just real quick before I get into my thoughts, it was Raphael Albuquerque.
Okay.
He was originally supposed to be in the book, and there was, I guess, extensive flooding in Brazil that put delays on him. You would know his stuff going all the way back to the Salty Keith Giffen, John Rogers Blue Beetle run.
Yep.
Scott Snyder American Vampire, that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, they ended up using his designs, and they credited him in the back of the book with the designs and that sort of thing. I like this a lot. All of these things take like these twists on the existing origin. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, okay. I think I liked Wonder Woman the most of the first 3 after reading the first 3.
Right.
But I think the one that has the stronger hook is Superman.
Okay.
Part of this is because just like I think in popular culture in general, Superman's origin, Batman's origin, and Spider-Man's origin are shorthand.
Yes.
At this point, you don't need to explain that to people. We don't need to do origin stories for these characters. But because everybody knows them, you could play with them a little bit more, right? I think we're a month removed, so I could talk about how in Absolute Batman, it's not, it's the trip to the zoo where Bruce's dad gets killed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the mom is still alive. Or, what happens in this book, how Todd had mentioned where, Jor-El and Lana-El were not the science people, but they were like the low class. They were the farming stuff. And they really kind of get into like fleshing out those characters, making Clark Kal-El's original parents more in line with what we knew Ma and Pa Kent as, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can play with that sort of stuff. What's Wonder Woman's origin?
She was sculpted by the Amazonians as a gift from Athena.
Is that for sure all the time?
Not anymore, no.
Right. And that's
because now it's Zeus or whatever. But
yeah. So I think because DC in general has played so much with Wonder Woman's origins over the last 80 years, where over the last 80 years, Superman's origin, Batman's origin have been set in stone. You can't change them. So where you have to focus more on the characterization in Wonder Woman, where Batman and Superman, you could play with twisting the origins on their head, which is great. I like them, but I really like the hooks in Superman a little bit better than I like the hooks in Batman. Batman has hooks, but I feel the hooks in Batman feel more 90s hooks.
Okay.
Whereas the hooks in Superman and the hooks in Superman feel more modern.
All right, fair enough.
Not to say that I didn't like these books.
No.
I liked all 3 of these books. They stand on the list. We're going to go forward with them until they fall off the rails, which hopefully they don't.
Mm-hmm. And maybe some of the new books that are going to join this, universe, if you will.
And again, you get that twist moment at the end of this issue where, like, let's say a twist moment in Batman plays out throughout the entirety of the book.
Right.
In regards to Batman's relationship with Alfred.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the twist moment here, which I'm not going to give away, comes on the last page of the book.
Right.
And there's no real setup for it unless you know the current modern day history of that character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I will say I'm going to go with Superman was my favorite of the books. Then after that, they all kind of bunch together. Like there's no silver and bronze for me. I think there's 2 silvers or 2 bronzes or however you want to do it.
Right.
So.
But if you've been looking to get into these books, and you're familiar with them, if you're looking to get DC stuff, these come with their highest recommendation, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
DC has a lot of good stuff out now, but these, it's a very strong 1, 2, 3 punch, I feel.
Yeah, and this is exactly what this line needed, because as we've, gone over before, like the lines that have come and disappeared very, very quickly, never had a start this strong. So
yeah. And I think that's kind of what helps, that there is a start that's this strong. And there are more books in the Absolute line that are coming, but DC didn't release them all at once so that they all get kind of jumbled together and mixed up and like, well, I don't know what ones to get. Well, if there's only 3 to start for the first like 2 or 3 months, then those are the 3 that you're getting.
I agree.
Yeah. So that's what we read from this past week. Let's get into what we're looking forward to coming out this week. Todd and I attempt to guess what the other is most looking forward to coming out this week. Hang on. Let me start that over again. We do look forward to what we're coming out this week, but every week we put up the poll post, which is a link to all the books that are coming out this week, whether you get your books in print, whether you get them digitally, whether you get them sent to your home, however it is you get your books, be forewarned, be forearmed, know what's coming out this week. The post here for this and the upcoming thing that we're going to talk about next, the Todd and Joe Have Issues, those are all up on the Patreon, patreon.com/longboxheroes. Those are free posts. You don't need to pay for them, obviously. We're going to give you a little bit more of a hard push next week in regards to this, but everything is going to be on the Patreon going forward as of the beginning of December. Longboxheroes.com is no longer going to be updated after the first week of December. So everything is going to be over on the Patreon. Everything, for the most part, is going to be free, but we'll get to the stuff that you have to pay for on the Patreon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Like I said, Todd and I attempt to guess what the others most looking forward to coming out this week. We are currently tied up at 35 correct guesses apiece, and we only have like 6 weeks left in the calendar year. So let's see who could do what, right?
Right. I'm looking over your list, and it's one of those weird weeks where you have way more than me, Joe.
Yes.
But is the book you're looking forward to most Amazing Spider-Man 61?
It is. This is the first official book of the Joe Kelly run. It's right in the cover. We didn't talk about it last time, so we can talk about it now because it's on the cover. But in whatever contest of whatever that's going on, Dr. Doom is choosing Spider-Man as his champion.
Right.
So there's heavy Dr. Doom stuff in the first arc here of Amazing Spider-Man. So I think that is going to help,
Right.
You, on the other hand, it can't be Amazing Spider-Man 61 because you're just getting that because you have to put it in a box that has Dr. Doom on the front. I'm going to guess the book that you're most looking forward to coming out this week is Absolute Batman #2.
It is not.
Oh, my goodness.
Because Amazing Spider-Man is not going in a box. This is a book that after the bit with Doom at the end and leading into One World Under Doom kind of a thing, I don't know if this is the beginning of it, like whatever, but because Doom is in it, I'm jacked for it. Now, if he's just going to be blah, 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 you're my champion, and then he's out of the storyline, then I don't see me like going forward with it. But I'm hoping that he's a big part of it, but I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Color me shocked.
Yep. It was the Doom and the cover, man. Him in that red cape looks fantastic.
Now, is this the first official new Doom thing that's coming out there, or has he been doing this new Doom thing in Fantastic Four already?
Not yet in Fantastic Four. Basically, since whatever was it, Blood Hunt? Was that the storyline?
Yes.
Okay, so that was the one where he became Sorcerer Supreme and stopped it. Then in Fantastic Four, all we know is, so I don't know where this takes place. In Fantastic Four, he's put a magical dome over Latveria, and he's doing something. And Reed is racking his brains trying to figure out what he's doing in there because he can't, his science won't let him look in there or whatever. So I don't know if this is him coming out after that or whatever. So and I don't know if Doom has been in any other books that I know of, if that makes any sense. So that's your Doom report.
Gotcha. Doom report.
Right. Well, I bring the doom, if you will, Joe.
Oh my goodness. No, don't do that.
Okay.
Because I don't think there's any good, like, Boom Boom is who I have to get. I don't think their name is even Boom Boom anymore.
I don't know.
Okay. So, hey, before we get into Todd and Joe Have Issues, I would be remiss not to mention one of Todd and I's favorite apps. Now, I've been trying for years to get Todd to try all the fast food apps that I use.
Mm-hmm.
But the one app that I was able to convince Todd to get on board with is CLZ. It is a cataloging site that has cataloging stuff for books and music and games and movies, but specifically comics, which is what we use it for, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I'd been using for the better part of 2 years. My friend Chris got me on it. He extolled the virtues of it. It's a great way, handy dandy, to catalog your stuff, organize your stuff, know what you have. They have great resources in regards to having like that week's books up well in advance.
Mm-hmm.
They have a great customer service thing, right?
Right.
Now it's a paid app. I'll tell you that much. It's $20 a year. You could find it in whatever app store that you're using just by searching CLZ Comics. You can go to clz.com to look at more information about it. But the good people at CLZ have partnered up with us, and we're going to give away a subscription to someone for this.
Mm-hmm.
So for the next month, up until the first week of December, send us an email over at longboxheroes@gmail.com and make sure that you have in the subject line CLZ giveaway.
Right.
And that first week of December, we're going to take all the entries, and someone is going to win a subscription to the CLZ app. Now, I will say it's just the app, and it's just the comic books one. There's a web-based one. Listen, I like the app one. It's better to have that in my hand than the web browser one, which is rare for me. So, if I go the app versus the web browser, that the app is that much better. And if you already have CLZ, because this is something that Todd and I have been pushing to people behind the scenes for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
If you already have it and you win, this will just give you a free renewal, essentially.
Right.
So, new user, great. Hop on board, try it, catalog your book. You could do it manually. You could scan them. There's 100 different ways that you could put your books in there. You could set up a pull list. I love the app. Todd loves the app. And like I said, the collectors people, CLZ.com, were nice enough to offer it up as a giveaway to our listeners.
Yeah, there's not much more because I would repeat everything you say. But like you said, I'm not an app guy, but I was all in on this one. So
right. So email to longboxheroes@gmail.com, CLZ giveaway in the subject line, and then the episode that we record the first week in December, which would be the December 3rd, is the last day to get those emails in to win the CLZ app subscription.
Right.
So over to Todd and Joe Have Issues, as we are going to be discussing issue 28 of Gail Simone's Secret Six. We have been reading Gail Simone's Secret Six from the very beginning, with the Villains United stuff, with the Birds of Prey stuff, the crossover stuff, and we're going to be getting into more of that as we wind up the run here. But this is the end of this existing story arc.
Right.
The little 4-parter that we had here with the 2 different iterations of the Secret Six, heading over to that Warlord Savage Land era. And again, I can never remember what the name of it is, right?
Scartaris, I think.
Yes, Scartaris or what have you. Yes. But this is kind of the resolution of that story. We talk so much that this run of Secret Six has been almost a redemption arc for characters like Catman and characters like Bane. And while those characters have been put over a ton, I feel as though more recently with the introduction of this story arc was definitely helping to build up Black Alice to be an equal to those redemption arc stories that we saw for Catman and Bane.
Mm-hmm. No, I was just going to say, once again, I'm a big fan of this era of stuff. The fact that, once again, we were talking about Ragdoll being in the Superman underwear, absolutely kills me. But if they ever do a figure of that character, him with the red blood handprint on it was absolutely striking. I do like a lot of the stuff with Black Alice and how, how her parents kind of formulated her, look at life. And in the end, we kind of see the bit where maybe the healer from the person who saved Bane's life is going to cure him. We don't know exactly, but I guess that's kind of where it's leading. This was the great ending to a 4-part storyline. And as we've said before, just the fact that it didn't need to be 19 issues or 8 issues or, 4 and done, and it's perfect.
Right. Black Alice, like I said, gets those moments at the beginning and the middle of the end of this where she's reminiscing about the time with her family, talking about the last happy day that she had with her family, and then she gets to have the big speech to get everyone, specifically Bane, to stop fighting from her own life experience, essentially saying that we're these people's cancer. Like, yes, these people were fighting, yes, they were in turmoil, but us showing up just made things worse. Right. And the only way to make things better is for us to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And, she kind of stands up to Bane and she gets that big moment. And, like you said, she gets the healer who saved Bane to hopefully help her father. Bane specifically, and Scandal end up convincing Tremor, who had been working for Amanda Waller during all this, to extend that same offer to both groups of the Secret Six to get all of their records expunged. But maybe not one person. We had speculated there might be a casualty. Secret Six currently, of what we're reading, is the closest analog that we have to Suicide Squad, Task Force X, call it what you will. And there is always casualties. And once the Iggy is given to Giganta, who got the information what Dwarf Star had done to the Ray Choi atom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, we don't know for sure that she goes and kills Dwarf Star, but she definitely don't make his life much better.
Right.
Yeah.
This is great. And like I said, more with Scandal and Bane. One of my favorite bits is when Bane kind of gives the reason for why she did it. He did it. He was like, because I wanted to basically get you away from your father, and this place is a place where I could give you could be the princess that you are. And I'm trying to find what he says to her, and she's like, and Scandal says, a terrible thing for a kind reason. And then Bane goes, the very definition of love as I understand it. And I'm like, I love their dynamic, Joe.
Yeah.
And the bit where Deadshot gets his revenge on the woman who, when the hit was put out on all the Secret Six, went after his family. And Bane's like, you can't kill her. All right, I'll just put one in the knee. I'm like, I love Deadshot. Deadshot's so cool.
Yeah. We talked about this before, that Deadshot, if anyone, was the most fleshed out of the characters when this story started, when Gale's run of the book started. So, again, he gets to have these great moments without having as much rebuilding of the character or reintroduction of the character or just introduction of the character.
Right.
Not to say that he didn't. He got that one issue that was written by John Ostrander, which was the solo issue, which was really cool. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like I said, I'm having a lot of fun rereading all of this.
Yeah, I can't believe we're almost at the end of this, man.
Yes, we're almost at the end, and we got to the point that I knew that we were going to come to, where there are less weeks in the year than there are issues of us to have to read. Mm-hmm. So for next week and the week after, we have for the next 3 weeks, because there's no TV shows, just lined up perfectly this way, wink. We're going to be reading 2 issues over the next 2 weeks. Now, We had kind of gone back and forth in regards to this one issue, but next week we are going to be reading in this order Action Comics 896 and then Secret 629.
Right.
Again, the reason we're reading the 2 issues, even though the Action Comics issue is not written by Gail Simone, it does involve the Secret 6. And what happens in Action Comics 896 is literally a cliffhanger that picks up at the beginning of Secret 629. So we kind of sort of have to read it.
Right.
So, again, 2 issues this week, 2 issues next week, and then 2 issues the week after that, and then it's just right to the end of the year, and then we wrap things up. And then first week of December or so, we're going to announce what we're going to be doing for 2025's Todd and Joe Have Issues. We got the reading order together. We got the book picked out. I got my copies of it ready to go. A little bit more doubling up on that one.
Right.
But from what I remember, there are issues that are a little bit quicker of a read, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you could breeze through stuff a little bit easier than others, and that is going to be a complete reread, and that includes the mainline series, mini-series, and one-shots, the whole deal.
Yes, sirree.
Yep. We've been given clues. If you figured it out, let us know. Maybe I'll tell you. I'll tell you privately what it is if you need to prepare, right? There were no Todd's Art Attacks this week, correct?
Nope.
Be sure to get your pigskin pick'ems in. I know Todd has the group locked, but I also know that sometimes the ESPN site that we use for it could be a little touchy, a little tricky, and you think you put your picks in, but sometimes it didn't register if you didn't click really, really hard on the pick. Mm-hmm. We did have a couple people have that happen to them in the last week or so don't let that happen to you this week. Todd does send out a reminder through social media to let you know that this needs to be done. I crept up a little bit this week. I'm in 38th place, Todd.
Ooh.
Yep.
Surging.
And you're in a 6-way tie for 10th place. So you're, I think, right where you were before, right?
Yeah. And I kicked myself because I did miss one pick. But that was on me. I fell asleep before the Thursday night game, and I woke up and I'm like, oh, who's playing? I'm like, oh, I didn't make my pick yet, because sometimes I'll do the waffle back and forth. And I was like, oh, I have time to look at my pick. And I was like, oh, no, it's 8:32. They lock at 8:30. And I was like, all right. So I could have had maybe one more win, but maybe next time.
Maybe next time. Maybe not, though.
So,
hey, you could help us out by making any and all of your eBay purchases through our eBay affiliate link. Mm-hmm. They're included in the show notes to every single post that we put up, whether it be episodes of this show, episodes of After Dark, pull post, Todd and Joe Have Issues. You could find them there because the show's going to be on Patreon from here on out. And in the links, it'll say the affiliate link. And you buy something from eBay, we get a little bit of a kickback. You could use the affiliate link anytime you want to buy anything you want on eBay and support us at the same time.
Yeah.
The TeePublic sale is still going on. 35% off any and all the purchases that you make through our TeePublic store. Also, link for that is included in the show notes to every single one of the posts that go up for the site. Like I said, 35% off everything up into the 24th of November. And I'll let you, the listeners here, know that from the 25th to the 30th, everything is 40% off.
Ooh.
Yes. So there's a little bit of a change there, of course, in regards to the handling of that. But the best and smartest way to help us, assist us, and so forth is our Patreon page. Patreon.com/LongboxHeroes. For as little as $1 a month, you're going to get 2 bonus shows from Todd and myself. One is Comic Book Oddities, where we look at some of the lesser-known, much maligned, maybe rightfully forgotten attempts to bring comic books to the small screen or the silver screen. This month, we're going to be watching the 1984 Helen Slater classic, Supergirl, which was in heavy rotation on HBO at the time, and it was one of the first times in my young life, I wouldn't say that I noticed, but I was definitely, I definitely really, really noticed the blatant product placement that's in this movie.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the emblem on her chest, but anyway.
Oh, no. I was still too young to have those sort of ideas or feelings or otherwise.
Gotcha.
The other show, of course, is Previewing the Past, where we look at 30 years ago this month's previews catalog. We did just record November of 1994, and I'll give you a little bit of a tease there. I put it out on social media, variety platforms. Hey, follow the show on Blue Sky as well, you know? I'm cross-posting there. Maybe that's Todd's secret Blue Sky account. Who knows?
Could be.
But there was an interview in the previews that we read because it was hyping up a big new crossover at Image with a bunch of the extreme characters from the Rob. Mm-hmm. And the Rob states at the end of the interview, because that month was also soliciting the first trade of Youngblood. And in the interview, the Rob states that in the trade, they are going to re-script and replot the book because he was not happy with the way that it turned out.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a little bit of journalism. And on the next Previewing the Past, we're going to talk about what actually happened with that book.
Do you know how important dialoguing is to a comic, Joe?
Some people would say not at all.
Some people would say a lot.
And that same person would also say that he's going to replot and rescript the book.
Yep.
But like I said, we've been pushing the Patreon show a bunch. $1 is going to get you those 2 bonus shows. It's going to get you the full scans of the previews catalogs that we talk about on Previewing the Past. It's going to get you access to the soon-to-be-named network Discord. $5 a month is going to get you those 2 bonus shows 2 weeks before everyone else. And it's going to get you After Dark 2 days before everyone else so that you can listen to the shows in the correct listening order. But as of the first week of December, everything is on the Patreon. And that's the only place that you can get this show, the only place that you can get After Dark, all the posts that we talk about, whether it be the pull post, whether it be the Todd and Joe F. issues stuff, whatever it is, it's all going to be housed on the Patreon. That's going to be the one-stop shop for everything for Longbox Heroes. Get that RSS feed, subscribe to it now, grab the show that way going forward. Patreon did just send something out saying that they're going to attempt to make this stuff easier for folks, both us as creators and you as people that support us. And like I said, free. This show is always going to be free. After Dark on Fridays is always going to be free. Poll Post is never going to be behind a paywall. Todd and Joe Have Issues never going to be behind a paywall. The Previewing the Past never going to be behind a paywall. We have stuff that's been set up behind a paywall. And again, we're not looking for you to throw us a couple bucks. If you're there and you do, that's great. If not, we're just giving you a heads up here that in the next 3 weeks, this is going to be the only place that you can get the shows.
Right.
That being said, that out of the way, let's get into the Penguin season finale, Todd.
Oh, been waiting, Joe.
Let me get my novel out here.
Okay, you have some notes?
I got a couple notes.
Right. So,
is it safe to say spoiler filled talk?
Spoiler filled. And I forgot to mention this at the beginning of the episode. I think I'm going to answer the question that you've been asking for 7 weeks, by the way.
Oh, what would that question be, Todd?
Whether or not the Penguin is smart or just lucky.
I think he's smart.
There's a scene in this where I go, he's smart. So, but when we get to it, we'll get to it. So, the episode starts out with Dr. Rush and Sophia, Dr. Rush using that fancy schmancy Knight Rider light to do some therapy on her. And she ends up, talking about what happened in the past. And the bit that I love about this is they establish that it's a flashback, but she gets up out of bed and she's the older actress for Francis that we know. And she looks in the mirror and it's the young version actress. So I'm like, all right, I understand what you're doing here. This is a brilliant visual. And then because obviously this actress is the actress we've known as Penguin's mother and is the better actress. So like that's the way it's played out. And I absolutely love it. And we get to see her talking to Rex Calabrese, who's, the Penguin's idol and everything. He's the mobster that she works for. And he ends up talking to her about the son, and she ends up just letting it loose that she realizes that Oz killed his brothers because she found the flashlight and this thing. And they end up having the conversation. Well, you got two choices. You can either feed that fire and hopefully make it work for you, and the line of work that works is my line of work, or I could make the kid go away. What's your choice? And she ends up choosing take the kid for a ride. I'm like, oh. So they go, and that's why they go to the Monroe Club. That's the reason she woke up that one morning and changed. Joe, the more I watch this, the more I want to go back and watch this show. Before we even get into it, like all the hints of stuff as we go. She goes, they go, they have their night together in that spectacular dress. More on
which
that
we
later.
Saw last episode.
Yep.
Which we saw bits and pieces of last episode, and obviously now here we see like what set that all up. Yeah.
Yep. So they go and they're having their good time, and she's like, "Oh, you're having such a great night." Like to make it even better, at the end of the night, Rex is going to give you a ride home in that car you love. And he ends up doing an impassioned plea or whatever, or whether it's him angling at a young age, like, I know, things have been tough, but give me a chance and I'll make all your dreams come true. The line he's been feeding her the whole series. And I love that, like, Rex is behind him, like, talking. He's, like, giving the nod, like, let's go. I'll take him. We'll do this. And we end up realizing she bought it. And she gave him another chance, and that's the Penguin as we know it,
right? And it was powerful. There are a lot of powerful scenes in this episode. A lot of characters have got powerful moments throughout the series, but everyone gets a moment in this episode, and I thought it was great.
Yep. So now in present day, Victor has taken the underlings from the gangs to where, like, because that Penguin said, "Bring them, I need my army," and they end up being like, "Oh, giant hole in the ground. Let's go, we're out of here." And he's like, Vic gives an impassioned speech. They're like, "We're not here for the Penguin, we were here for the product," which is a great kind of line, kind of a deal. And he goes again. He's like, "No, blah blah blah," and the second in command of the Asian gang, just like punches him. He's like, "Listen, you're not a boss. Learn your place. Like, this is what we are. Blah blah blah. It's not perfect, but you're on your own." And I'm like, oh, I wonder if that's very interesting, kind of the way he puts it out there. So now, because Oz has been kidnapped by that drophead cop, he gets taken to Monroe's, the nightclub, and it's all disheveled and everything, where we have Sophia and her men, and he's tied to a chair, and she ends up running down like this story about a bird that she knew, which equates to like how he killed his brothers, and he ain't grasping it. And she just lets out, "Your mom knew, your mom knows the whole time, just admit it, and we'll go." And he won't. So she amps up the stakes, and she uses the cigar cutter that she stole from his apartment to say, like, "We're going to cut off your finger if you don't admit it." And he will not. He will not, even though, like, the mother's pleading with him to do it. And she's like, "You're full, like, you won't do it." And they let her up. And the mother has a meltdown and says, "I know the whole time. I wish I had him whack you." Like the whole Megillah. And it is now out there. She ends up smashing a bottle and stabbing him. And before she passes out, she sees like the soggy ghost corpses of her two kids and hits the floor. I'm like, oh my God. He has his Herculean moment, gets out, puts a whole bunch of bullets in people, gets that drophead cop. When he shot him in the head, that's a cheer for me, by the way, Joe. I'm coming around to your way of thinking.
Well, so it's so again, just to interrupt you here and just commenting on you talking about the show. I'm with you up to this, I'm with you so far. There was so many different times during the course of this series that I was cheering for the Penguin as well. And I'll just say this: by the time that we get to the end of the episode, I ain't cheering for the Penguin no more.
No, I'm more cheering for the demise of the Drophead Cop than for Penguin, if that makes any sense.
All right.
So let's see. I'm checking my notes.
But we get the so in addition to so when Ma breaks the bottle and stabs Oz, and she sees the vision of the two kids. What'd you call them? The soggy kids.
Her soggy ghost kids.
She also sees Oz as the little kid as well. Yeah, that
kid was such a good actor too.
It should have been Mario Bosco. That's all. I
don't know who that is, but
don't ask.
So Sophia ends up rounding up the heads of the gang, and she ends up saying I'm leaving.
Well, okay, so before she does that, Penguin gets away, gets Ma to the hospital, steals someone's cell phone, and gets Vic to show up at the hospital.
Right. I thought that happened shortly after that, but yes.
No, again, according to my notes, it happens literally right next. So It's at this point where Penguin is laying everything out, except Penguin doesn't tell Vic that it was his mom who stabbed him.
Right. He says it was Sophia or one of her goons or something. Right.
And Penguin's we're done. It's all over. The product's gone. All the people have left. And then Vic gets his big moment, right?
Oh, yes.
Vic gets to deliver that speech, which makes the ending of the episode so much harder to deal with.
What? I don't know what you're talking about.
And Vic kind of inspires the Penguin to keep going with everything. And Oz even kind of ribs him a little bit. And is oh, did you practice that a bunch,
More from your diaphragm, kid. You know what I mean? What a loyal kid Vic is, man.
Showing that camaraderie. And this is where we learn that Vic has that insight that he has, Link from the Triads and this one and that one. A lot of the underlings are on Penguin's side. And Vic is that connection to get all them on board. Because all you need really to take down any of these families is one person.
Yep.
And from the way that Vic was talking, they got one person in every family. Yeah.
So
now we get the scene where Sophia's at the house with all the leaders there. And she's saying, I'm gone. I'm leaving. Who wants everything? Whoever brings me the Penguin gets everything.
And they're you're just going to walk away kind of a deal?
Yes.
So they kind of go off. Now Penguin's making his play. He's all right, we got to go do something, and he goes with Vic, and he goes to wherever whether it's City Hall or whatever, I'm not sure, but where the politicians are. And he goes to see the politician that he, kind of blackmailed to turn the lights on at Crown Point. And Joe, this is the moment when it's cemented to me that the Penguin is smart, not just lucky. The plan he lays out to not so much the plan as the story, the opportunity that he runs on this politician is that he's all right, I want you to know it was Sophia and the Falcones and the Maronis, the Gigantes, whatever, fighting, and the explosion on the street, under the street, was them fighting over drugs. If you go dig around in that hole, you're going to find Maroni men, Falcone men. You're going to find, I forget which Maroni it was, but the head of the Maroni family's dead bodies down there. You're going to find the blown up carcass of a car that was owned by Sophia. He throws it on them. And I'm this is flawless, Joe. This plan is flawless. And I'm he came up with this as he needed it. I just think he's had some bad breaks in the plan. Plans didn't go his way, but he could turn on a dime, and he's a very, very smart man. I don't know if you agree with that now.
I think at this point, definitely he's someone who is a great strategist. He is someone who definitely has a lot of irons in the fire when it comes to a plan. He does not have one plan. And again, it's easy for him to pivot when things fall apart because he has been constantly laying the groundwork for like, okay, if A fails, I've got B and C and D and F plans that I could fall back into. I just need, once that first plan falls apart, I need a moment to regroup, to reassess, and say, okay, which path am I going down now?
Right. And before you leave, like even during all this, and he's in that like hall room where the people meet. Do you think he was eyeing up that mayor sign a lot there, Joe?
Well, okay. Not only is he eyeing up the mayor sign, he leaves the meeting with the councilman guy, Haney or Habe or whatever his name is.
Right.
And as he's leaving, he sees the new mayor up in the crow's nest, the balcony or whatever it is. And again, she goes into the big office. She's got her people around her. They're figuring out what the plan is going to be, the way that they're going to explain all this stuff to the people of Gotham. And again, he's just looking. You know, maybe this will be for me, right?
Yeah. So while he was in there, because obviously they let, whoever brings Miaz from Sophia gets to take over everything. The second in command of the Asian gangs, Zhao's, I think it was.
Yeah.
He's like the one who punched him earlier. It's like, hey, are you with the Penguin kind of a deal? And so when Oz comes out, that I think his name was Link, actually. Link is there with Vic. And
right. Link is the underling who's in group with Vic. Zhao is the guy who's the head of the triads.
So they end up grabbing him. Now, okay, I got to pause here because I've got to put down the goosebumps. So now Sophia's at her mansion. She gets the call from, the head of the triads and says that I have them. And then Sophia proceeds to pour alcohol over everything because she kind of goes over her father's stuff in his bedroom. I think it's the watch that she bought him earlier in the episode, in the season.
Where she's looking at the watch when she gets the call. And like the watch kind of gives her pause. Like as she's pulling all the stuff out of the closet, I'm like, okay, I know what she's going to do. I have an idea what this is all about. But it's the watch gives her pause. The phone call from Zhao comes in. And then the watch don't matter. Because now she's got the Penguin dead to rights.
Because she had so many chances to like walk away kind of a deal. And Joe, when she starts pouring the alcohol and the song starts, which is, what is it?
So the name of the song is Where Did You Sleep Last Night? You, listener, probably know it very well from the Nirvana Unplugged, right?
Right.
And I forget who the original artist on that was.
There are a million, like, I don't know if we can even go back because that's like a folk song from years ago and it's been covered many, many times. And it's called In the Pines originally.
Okay, right. It was covered, Leadbelly and all these other people. But this specific version is done by the band Sleigh Bells. And this scene of Sophia torching the house and taking the moment and pouring the alcohol countered with this song is just such a powerful moment in a powerful show.
Okay. So I'm going to come back to music as we go because we never touched on music through like all the episodes that we've done.
Well, we did in the first episode, but we can come back to that.
Right.
Go ahead.
So this happens. Once again, I've taken up smoking, Joe, after this. Her with the 3 cigarettes. Oh, it was nicotine overload. So she lights them up. Now, this clip is on YouTube. I'm shocked that it's on there, that somebody has it. I watched this clip 50 times, Joe, if I've watched it once. And her with the cigarette with the glee that she flicks it into the bed and it goes up and she's just standing there while it burns. And I think there's significance to everything she burns in the house because it's not like she goes in the kitchen and she does it. She does her father's bedroom. She goes to his office And then finally she goes to the dining room that she was in when like all the things that happened, like said, you're going to be the head of the family. And then he turned his back on that same room and burns down the picture of her father or the family photo portrait. And the look on her face while it's burning, and Joe, she's never looked more crazy or more gorgeous. Oh my God. I was like, I'm in love. But then she goes out and like all the glee that's on her face as the driver's like, let's go. She looks broken. Even though like that's kind of like getting it out, she still looks unhappy because obviously she hasn't gotten the penguin yet, you know? And,
and that's the thing. She's on her way.
Mm-hmm.
She gives him the message. Here's where we're going to meet. Bring him to the house. Nope. I'm out of town anyway. Bring him to the airport. I'm coming there anyway. Let's kill two birds with one stone. Literally, I could pop him, hop on a plane, and get out of town.
Yep, and I forget what it was. I think it was like the Goodwin Airport or something. Yeah. So I thought that was cool. That was a nice nod to Archie Goodwin. So she shows up and she got him, and all the people are there. Zhao is there. And she's happy. And then does the penguin smile?
Okay. So there have been several times during the course of the series where the penguin, whether when he was aligned with Sophia or not aligned with Sophia, and he was dead to rights, and he had a look and a demeanor and a something, right? Mm-hmm. And this time when she pulls up, and you had mentioned like she looks defeated, but when she pulls up and she sees the group of people, she sees them bringing the penguin out, and she gets out of the car. And it's not so much a smirk, but it's not the same look of distress that we've seen before on the penguin mm-hmm. when he has been dead to rights. Mm-hmm. And she realizes that everything is not what it seems before Zhao does, and Zhao eats a bullet for his troubles because of it.
Right, from Link. And he ends up getting the drop on them, and he's like, okay. And then he ends up taking her for a ride in the car. Can I say the H word in here, Joe?
Yeah, by this point you can.
Okay, so he takes her in the car, and they have a nice, interesting conversation. He's like, it seems like old times. I'm the driver again. And then he proceeds to basically tell the story of like how it happened and as it's happening now kind of a deal where all you people, you're too busy filling your plate kind of a deal. And
that not only that they're too busy filling their plates, but they give scraps to the other people. They don't know what it's like to fight from above. Their family, they never had to work to get what they have to be part of the crime families.
Mm-hmm.
But
and like
all these underlings who want to rise up don't get that opportunity because the tops of the families just give them scraps, and they take and they take and they use and they use.
Right. And he says, like, with your boots on our necks kind of a deal. Like, the penguin knows what to say to everybody. And this is what he explained to the second in command. Like, he explained to Link and Vic told everybody, and they end up rising up, and you show each of the people that were at the Gold Summit being taken out by their second in command who was at the Gold Summit.
Yep.
Absolutely brilliant, Joe. And he says, I'm taking you to hell kind of a deal. And he takes her down by the river.
Now,
go ahead.
Before you get to that, he's like, I'm taking you to hell. And they pull up, and I thought to myself, I'm like, is he just going to drop her at the gates of Arkham?
Mm-hmm.
And they show up, and it's not. It's just like a warehouse, and it's, by the bridge, and it's everything else like that. And I'm like, oh, he's going to kill her. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
And he's like, and I do like when she's like, what, are you going to, put the gun into my back for the bit? He's like, you ain't the type to run, honey. He's like, let's go. I've seen this before. And he goes, and she's content at this point, Joe. She like breathes in. She's like,
because she just wanted to get away.
Yes. And at least this is getting away somehow in my mind, And then like you're waiting for the kablamo, and like a light's on her, and all the cops.
So just real quick. So earlier, obviously there's graphic violence in this show. There's graphic violence in this episode. We see the drop head detective doing drops. And then as he brings his head down into like looking straight at camera, Penguin shoots him and it comes like right through his eye. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And they have that close up on Sophia, the actress who plays Sophia's face. And I'm like, are they going to show like her face explode? Are they going to show like whatever? And then, as you said, the lights show up. And the cops show up.
And it's basically, we know where she's going, Joe. When he says he's sending her to hell, it's what hell is to her, which is Arkham Asylum.
So in my thought process, thinking that he's just going to take her right to Arkham himself and drop her off there, this was somehow worse because he gave her the hope, which is crazy as it sounds, the hope that she's going to get out of all of this with a bullet to the back of her head.
Nope.
And then he even robs her of that.
Yep.
Oh.
Right. So now, like, because I just want to backtrack a little bit, and then we'll go from where it is. But like all of this, and I brought it up before, like the music and all of this, I have found so many new and or old bands from this, Joe, that like if they put out a Penguin soundtrack, I'm buying it.
As if people have unofficially put playlists together on the YouTubes. Yeah.
No, I get it. And I wish I mentioned it more, like, because we did it in the first episode with 9 to 5 and stuff like that. But a lot of times the music over the end of the episodes was so poignant and like kind of went with what was going on with the story that I do wish I mentioned it more. So I just wanted to get that out before we end up going back to the hospital.
Right. And I'll say, we talked about in the first episode where 9 to 5 is playing. And I stated then, I'm like, I didn't like this. It was like too contemporary, too mainstreamy, too whatever of a song to be played. I get why they did it. I don't like it. And here we are at the end of the thing and me talking about that band Sleigh Bells with their cover of Where Did You Sleep Last Night being like such a powerful moment in the show. I take it back. I was wrong.
I'm with it. And I also say, if I ever want to burn this podcast down, I'm doing it the way Sophia did with 3 cigarettes, like I said. So the whole network is coming down that way sometime.
Oh my goodness.
So now Oz is, they're on the news. The politicians are running with his plan. He's, taken over all the he wiped out the Falcones and the Maronis. He's running all the gangs in Gotham, and he's going to go to his mother and tell him him and Vic go in, turns on the TV. He's yelling and she's not right. She's just staring off into space. Get me a nurse. They explained it. She's in a vegetative state. He's like, nope, get me a doctor. And finds out that she's gone. She's probably never going to get well. And him breaking down, begging for her to give him the attaboy that he's been working for this whole time. I'm not going to say that like I'm rooting for the Joker, but I felt for the Joker Penguin in that moment for a hot second, if that makes any sense. Just tell me you're proud of me. Who doesn't want to hear their mother say they're proud of them? Maybe he went about it the wrong way. That's all I'm saying.
They're mostly all bad and flawed people, but again, this, obviously Colin Farrell is the lead of this show. He's gotten most of the big moments in the show, and he gets like 3 in this episode alone, right? Right. Which is the most powerful, I think, if you're a son with a mother, especially a mother who may no longer be with you. I could definitely, and listen, I'm not saying that you or I empathize or sympathize or would do the things that the Penguin did that was detailed in this show, but I understand it.
Okay. Yep, I'm not an apologist, but I'm an understander. Now, I'm just going to do things a little bit out of order. Because it kind of does this and that, and then, but Sophia is in Arkham, and Dr. Rush is there, and he comes in, and she's like hopeless. She's in hell. And he's like, listen, there's a lot of people who've been sending you mail. They're like fans. They're groupies. There's been a few wedding proposals, so it was nice to see that my letters were getting through.
There you go.
But he says, this is one that I think you need to see. And she goes, it's from a woman named Selena Kyle. And she says she's your half sister. And she starts reading it and she kind of like smiles a little bit. And I've seen this pop up in the Discord. I completely forgot Selena was in this continuity, was Falcone's daughter.
Yep.
So that makes them half sisters. Now, with her in the red in this episode, do you think there's any leaning into not having Harley Quinzel and Sophia being Harley Quinn?
No.
Not at all?
Nope.
Okay. I was just curious because I could see if they wanted to, if that makes any sense.
No, she's already her own thing and framed for the crimes of the Hangman. Okay. She don't need to be something else on top of all of that, right?
She doesn't need to be the world's greatest lasagna. Got it.
Right. Again, she doesn't need to be a hat on a hat on a hat.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So now, Oz is like, he's got it all. Now he goes down to the riverfront, sits on a bench, and has a few drinks with Vic as they're discussing it. Vic says, I couldn't have done without you, like Vic. And he's like, you know what? I just want to say, everything that's happened, you've been and I thought he was going to say father for a second. Because
Vic has a little bit of a stutter.
Yes, and I thought he was going to say father because he says he misses his father and everything.
And we got the bit earlier where Rex is talking to Ma, Francis, talking about how the different people that he recruits are the people that are missing a father.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now from the beginning of this episode, you're thinking, okay, maybe it's going to come full circle with Vic saying you're like a father to me. But instead he says something much worse.
He says you're family. And boy, Joe, was that the wrong thing to say. And he ends up grabbing him by the trachea and choking him out. And Vic bleeding for his life. And the only one, Joe, who stood by him and was loyal and helped him and did everything he could. And the whole time the Penguin saying I can't do this again. I can't have somebody. Penguin, whether he believes it or not, because I think he's a sociopath, cares for Vic. And he's like, you could be used against me. And I have to do this. And I think you can actually hear him snap the trachea at one point. And Vic goes down and it's over. And I've heard a couple people say this because Penguin ends up looking around. He ends up taking his wallet out of his pocket, taking all the money out of it. And people were like, why did that? So it looks like a mugging because he leaves the wallet and he throws the license in the river because there's nobody left to claim him. Without that ID, nobody knows who he is because his whole family's dead. The only woman who ever loved him left, and he could have went with her, but he didn't. And Penguin leaves him dead on the side of a river. Oh my God. I was like, I almost cursed here, Joe. You're going to have to bleep it. You horrible, horrible man. You can't get any worse. Wait for it. He can get worse.
So, obviously that moment where he snaps his neck and he makes it look like a mugging and all that sort of jazz. It's the moments before that hit harder for me, where Vic says that you're like family, and then they go over to Penguin, and he just kind of looks down,
and
he's just and he swears, but he's like, "Oh no, Vic, oh no." He goes, "You've seen me at my lowest. You've seen me at my worst. And that's your strength. And I can't have that."
Right.
And that's when he does it. And I'm just like, you see when the word family comes out of Vic's mouth, and you see the look and the demeanor, the posture, everything of Penguin, this day was coming.
Yeah.
It stinks that it's today, but I got to do what I got to do.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you think no matter what he said, he was going?
No.
Okay, I think he was. But because the whole thing, and I put this in the Discord too, them sharing the slushies at the first episode, and it's literally the same thing as they're sharing the whiskey. I think that's his excuse for doing it.
Okay.
But he was going to do it anyway.
Now I'm with you. I think that he was going to do this anyway, but it was Vic at this moment saying the word family is what, this was that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Whether Vic said family today, tomorrow, a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, whatever it was, that was going to be the thing that Penguin says, okay, now that you think that we're family, somebody else is going to think that we're family, and I can't have that. If they just think that if you just think that you're a bum like everybody else does, whether we're together or not, but it's the word family that makes Penguin realize, I got to kill him. I got to cut this. I got to cut this loose end now before somebody else grabs it.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you. I knew it would definitely happen, but I just wondered because that was kind of the theme why he protected his mother and kept her away. And he even gave the speech to a couple of people you can't have this in your life. He even tells Sophia. So yeah, I get it. I don't know. It's very weird, but yeah, him doing that is there's not much he can come back from. He can't come back from this. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because up to this point, people are he's charismatic, but they don't realize what a lunatic he is, and it happens. So now he's, the head of everything, and he's got his new, fancy car, and he gets out of it, and he's in the what we know as the Penguin suit now, and he's got his penthouse that he's been talking about, and he goes up, and he's restoring it and everything, but his mother's there, alive in a vegetative state? ? Because he's got her looking out the penthouse, and he's like, I got you everything you wanted, except for kill me if I'm in this state, because he can't do that. He can't even give them. He always said, I'd give you whatever you want, but he won't give her the one thing that he wants. She doesn't want to exist like this. But that one tear rolls down her eye, Joe, and it makes me wonder, is she still in there living her hell the way Sophia's living hers? But
there is a point in the, obviously the tear there, but there's also a point, and again, whether it was an acting choice, whether it was deliberate, whether it was the best take that they could get as they're doing it, there's a point when Penguin is given the speech, I just want you to say that you're proud of me, right?
Oh, tough speech, but go ahead, yeah.
Okay. And they're in the hospital, and her eyes move just slightly.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a blink or a shift, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was just enough to be is she faking it? Is she close? Is she something?
Mm-hmm.
And then we get the bit with the tear, and I'm like, she's in there.
Yep.
She's aware of everything that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, after he leaves, he walks out. And then, obviously, as it had been established in the episode and everything else like that, we know Penguin, obviously everything that we've seen him do, he's definitely nuts. He's definitely crazy. But this is him having that last dance with the younger version of his mom. He gave her everything that he promised her. And even if he can't do it with the living version, the old version, at least he could do it in his mind, right?
Yes, because he's with Eve, who's the lady of the evening who he had his relationship. Now I have to ask this question, because she even has kind of the wig on.
Yes, she's done up to look like his mother.
Yes, now which is not creepy at all, right?
No.
Not creepy in any way, shape, or form. But cut back, which makes me, like I said, want to watch all these episodes again. When Sophia and Eve have the talk in Eve's apartment, and she's like, so what are you to him? He goes, I know what he needs. I give him what he needs. I think she was doing this because she walks into the room and she has all the wigs and all the things, to play dress up, if you get my meaning. He's like, I know what he wants and what he needs. I feel like this has been their relationship all along, Joe. And now it's just even worse, if that makes any sense.
Because the mom is in the next room.
Yes, and she's kind of got, like, not only is like, it was, I didn't have it before, but yeah, it's just even creepier some way now. And Eve is just saying, I think it was Eve who says it, I don't know if it was the Penguin, just like, now you're on top, baby. And they kind of pan out the window, and they're like, and there's nobody who can take that away from you now. Cue the bat signal, Joe. Oh my God. Oh my God. I just like, this was, I did say I thought maybe Bruce would show up, but I think it's better to never have him in it all and just have that at the peak of the moment. Like, I have it all. The bat's out there to take it all away, Joe.
Right. I think, obviously after I watched this, I did read a little bit more of the pre and the post of this episode specifically. Mm-hmm. And I know Matt Reeves had said that there was an idea, a thought that they were going to do a Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne cameo in this episode.
Yep, but they couldn't find a place.
Right, and it just didn't fit. And again, I'm glad they didn't. I'm happy we did not get to see, like, we get to see Penguin in the tuxedo, but that's not the first time that we've seen him dressed up fancy. We get to see him with the cane. That's not the first time that we've gotten to see him holding the cane. We get to see him with the top hat, but he ain't wearing the top hat. I'm glad we didn't get to see him wear the top hat.
Yep, and he even puts the top hat on an umbrella stand.
Yep.
So good. Now, I want to say this now, because this was a discussion I was having at the shop to this and slightly off to the side. Because they're already talking about it, another season of this. Like, they're like, we're working, obviously, because it's the best, received HBO series in a while. And there's going to be the 2 more movies, and Colin Farrell said, yeah, I'm doing Batman 2. They're going to have me in it. I'm still alive, so I'm in it. Do we want or need a Penguin season 2?
No.
Thank you, because I was discussing this. I said, sometimes see Gladiator the movie, see right now the newest Long Halloween that they're doing without Tim Sale, because he passed away. I was going down the list of things that I'm like, we don't need sequels to everything. I think this is perfect as is, unless you can guarantee me season 2 is going to be the quality from beginning to end that this one was. I don't want another season of the Penguin, because I'm afraid they're going to tarnish it.
Yep.
So I'm glad you're with me on that one. So.
Yeah. Again, not everything needs a sequel. Sometimes the story just gets told here. Penguin is not the main character, but this was a great thing to flesh things out, to scratch that itch while we're waiting for the next Matt Reeves, Robert Pattinson Batman to come out. You want to do a movie about another character? Or you want to do a TV show about another character? You want to do a Sophia show? And maybe
Selena
the Penguin
show.
Shows up there. You want to do the you were about to say Selena Kyle thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Penguin maybe shows up in half an episode there. I'm okay with that.
Yep.
But we don't need Penguin 2, the TV show.
I agree. I honestly think this was perfection, so why mess with it?
I know, and obviously it's a little bit different in that Peacemaker was Jimmy Pistol before Jimmy Pistol took everything over. These kind of exist outside of the Jimmy Pistol universe that they're building.
Right.
But if this got a Blu-ray release with extras and deleted scenes and so on and so forth, that's a day one purchase.
Yeah, I know. I didn't watch any of them because after every episode, they have about a 10-minute discussion of the episode on Max. And the only one I kind of watched a little bit because it was the last one. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Because you can't show me an upcoming scene. I'm like, oh, Robert Pattinson's, because they do that kind of stuff and it ticks me off. But I do think if they have stuff to do and stuff like that. So I would be of the mind too. This would be a DVD that I would grab, and it almost makes me want to go back and watch the Batman for the Selena Kyle Falcone stuff. Not so much the Batman stuff. And the Penguin. He was good in that too, a little bit.
Yeah.
But all around, great season.
Yeah, and this was one of those ones, like, when it was on the schedule, like, I don't know, we'll see. Maybe we'll watch it, maybe we won't.
Right, I'm really looking forward to Agatha,
And Agatha was good, but these two kind of running head-to-head with each other didn't help. I think, Agatha was good, but this was great.
This was great. Now, greatest comic book TV show ever?
No.
What's The Boys?
You can't spring something like that on me. I got to go back. I got to do some research. We got to do some digging and thinking, you know?
All right. Maybe next week we could just touch on it. But
I know we do our year-end awards.
Ooh,
we had Boys episodes this year, and we had Penguin episodes this year, so...
Penguin versus the Homelander. That's what do you want to talk about?
Oh, my goodness.
Anyway...
but that's it, I think. I don't think there's anything else that we could really address that we haven't covered, right?
No, I think that is everything.
All right. Well, listen, everyone, thank you very much for listening. This was episode 736 of Longbox Heroes. For Todd, this is Joe saying thanks for listening. We'll see you all here next week.
Remember, be a faucet, not a drain.
Boop.
My girl, don't lie to me. Tell me, where did you sleep last night? In the pines, where the sun don't ever shine, I would shiver the whole night through. My girl, where will you go? I'm going where the cold wind blows. In the pines, where the sun don't ever shine, I will shiver the whole night through.
You're listening to the soon-to-be-named network, the Lamborghini of podcast networks.
The Rob is a Longbox hero. The Rob is a Longbox hero. He gives us five stars.